Good morning, good afternoon. Excuse me. I'm Nick Hill, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. You're gonna have to bear with me, y'all. Been up since 3 a.m. due to some work-related stuff, but we are here early afternoon on this Christmas Eve. And joining me is Gus Tomazelli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. First of all, I hope everybody have a Merry Christmas. I'm not gonna wish Happy New Year for now because we're gonna still have the last episode of the year. But this is our last episode before Christmas. So I hope everyone around the world, because it's a podcast that as we like to talk, the two countries, two Americas, all sports. So from people in US, Brazil, all over the world. Happy holiday and especially Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm already in my Christmas gear. I have my Tennessee, kind of like a Tennessee Santa hat, and my T-shirt of a Meow Christmas.
Yeah, I've got a red sweater here with a green dress shirt underneath. Just what I wore on air today while I was anchoring. So definitely we're all here in the Christmas spirit and in the spirit of the season. I like to ask this question every single year since we started this podcast. If you could get one thing from Sports Santa for any of your teams, what would it be?
Oh, for me, it's a no-brainer. Is Rio Branco being promoted to second division of São Paulo State Championship? Something that this year came really, really close. With all the semifinal drama. With the referee screwing up. So I hope Sports Center brings Rio Branco the deserving promotion that this year kind of fell through. So hopefully next year we got promoted to the A2, the second division of the state of São Paulo Championship.
For me, I would have to say consistent shooting for Tennessee basketball, especially as pertains to Native Met, because if they can accomplish that, then Tennessee has a very high ceiling potentially, especially when we get to March. So, and that would really be get to the one thing we've never had is a Tennessee Final Four appearance. So, um, I think that's what it's going to take for the basketballs to get to that point. But guys, let's kind of jump right in because obviously a lot of football going on, and last week was the college football playoff. The first round, and this round went a little bit different than last year, where we saw all four home teams just dominate last year. Two of the home teams lost this year, and actually I called it with my bracket. I went 4-0 on my picks. So let's start with the two big ones here, guys. Oklahoma got out to a 17-0 lead against Alabama and proceeded to completely collapse, getting outscored the rest of the game 34-7. To me, this was a quintessential Oklahoma performance. Oklahoma is now 0-5 in the playoffs. They haven't won anything of consequence now in over 25 years. Yeah, they make it to the postseason a lot, but they don't do anything when they get there.
Yeah, and you put on the liner something that was the theme of this first round of the college football playoff. Curse, because I did not expect Oklahoma defense to fell apart the way they did on Friday, because something that we praised in this podcast, last week was, it's going to be a low scoring game, and Oklahoma's defense, and something that but they fell apart. They really fell apart. Alabama was able to dominate, especially in the second half, and and again, Kellen DeBoer, when everybody you know thinks they're gonna fall apart, he proved him wrong, and you know, I and Alabama is dangerous when they don't have the pressure of being favored, because something that Nick Saban would love, to say, the rat poison kind of analogy, the doubting everybody, and Alabama did just that in Norman.
See, look, and obviously I'm not one to defend Alabama, obviously. I'm the Tennessee guy. But I think anyone who still thinks that Kellen DeBoer isn't the right coach for Alabama, needs their eyes examined. Is he Nick Saban? No. But you weren't going to find anyone that was Nick Saban. Like, yeah, DeBoer may not do as good as Saban, but he's still good enough to go down there and win a national championship, as he's proven. Like this Bama team is definitely far from perfect. Like they don't run the ball very well. They don't. They have some deficiencies at top points on defense. Really, they kind of go as Ty Simpson goes, and Ty Simpson was a little off and on Friday night, but in that second half, he really did get it going, and he has some really clutch plays. I really like their freshman wide receiver because obviously all the hype was about Ryan Williams, but Ryan Williams, frankly, has done nothing. Load Brooks. That's who I was thinking of. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. I think he really has proven, like the other 3 receivers that Bama has, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, and Load Brooks, are all better than Ryan Williams. Outside of that crazy catch Ryan Williams had last season against Georgia, I mean, what else has he done? He hasn't done much of anything, and people are acting like he's as good as Jeremiah Smith, which is far, far from the case.
Yeah, I think definitely. Of course, everybody like to point out, oh, he was only 17 and he was a young receiver. Maybe this season wasn't his best. But then when you have such a strong core like Alabama, when one player kind of is off, another one shows up.
Oh, 100%. And I kind of looking at Oklahoma here. I don't know if I can blame their defense fully for this. I mean, I said heading into the game, their offense was concerning, and the offense fell apart too. Like John Mateer is just not a very good quarterback. He's not as good as I thought he was going to be, and obviously he's been hurt, but he looked like he was healthy again, at least in the first part of the game. But he just made some awful decisions. That pick 6 he threw was awful, and then some of the decisions down in the second half were just terrible. I'm just like, who are you throwing to? Mateer, and then their kicker, Tateson Sandell, the guy who just could not miss in Neyland Stadium, hit like 3 50-plus yard field goals, completely falls apart at the end. Their punt coverage unit gets a punt blocked. They muff a punt. I mean, they did everything wrong in that second half. It was unreal just how much of a meltdown Oklahoma had as a collective team in that game. And like Bama went out there and they took it. They got the dub. But it does feel like Oklahoma lost this game a lot more.
Yeah, and especially it was in Norman, wasn't like a neutral site. Was, probably the biggest game the state of Oklahoma has ever seen in terms of football, in terms of importance. And they completely fell apart. And Brent Venables, that felt like he was secure, was going to go through next season. And a lot of people, I think he's not in a hot seat, kind of like a warmish seat.
Right. I mean, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like, look at how Tennessee fans talk about Josh Heupel. At least some of the crazier ones, Like, they've been mad since we got blown out of Ohio State. Like, playoff losses just leave a different taste in your mouth, And this is a new concept really to college football, these expanded playoffs. So we don't really know yet how to truly evaluate these types of losses. But I think Brent Venables, though, he obviously did a fantastic job this year, at least on defense. I'll be curious to see how they handle the offensive side of the ball. I still am really high on Ben Archbuckle. I think he's a very good offensive mind. And I do think they got a little bit handicapped this year with injuries. I think they should stay the course with him. And I'll be curious to see who their quarterback is.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how they move forward next season.
Mm-hmm. And, it's the same song and dance, I think, for Texas A&M as well. I mean, but then again, I think there were a lot more questions about A&M heading into this game because we talked about outside of Notre Dame, who else had Texas A&M really beaten? Like, all their wins from the SEC were from the bottom half. The only team they played in the top half of the SEC was Texas, and they lost. So then they host Miami, a team from the ACC that didn't even make its own conference championship game in the ACC, against a coach that we all know as a choker, and Mario Cristobal. And in the first, and really this entire game was just a comedy of errors, like missed kicks left and right, dropped punts, fumbles, bad play calls. I mean, it was an ugly, ugly game.
I mean, by halftime, 0-0 on a playoff game. I mean, I never seen such a, you know, the special teams, especially, like, they are not on their best.
Oh no, it was a disaster. And of course, you got to give credit to Miami. They stuck in there and were able to get the touchdown when they needed it. I mean, Miami's running game was very good towards the end of that game with Fletcher Jr. Carson Beck was mid, and they're going to need a lot more from him if they're going to win their next round. But hey, Miami did what they had to do in this game, and Marcel Reed. I'm sorry, the dude's just not it. Like, he is exciting, but he has not proven he can go out there and take over a game when his team needs it. And he threw just another backbreaking interception on the goal line to seal the game. And I think, for Mario Cristobal, I mean, this one is massive, right? Because I think this buys him some extra time with Miami, because he can point to them and say, hey, this is another year where Miami got better. We went and we won a playoff game on the road at an SEC team, and boom, like we're getting better every year. The talent of Miami is very high. It was by far the highest in the ACC, which just makes it even more embarrassing they still can't win the league. But hey, they won a playoff game, which is, at this point, it's probably more important than winning the ACC championship.
And it's so funny, if Miami Hurricanes wins this, wins it all, they are gonna, kind of mirror their MLB side, the Florida Marlins. Now, the Miami Marlins, who also won the World Series without winning their division.
Yeah, that's still a wild stat to me that that's even possible, and they've done it twice too, which is crazy. But the Hurricanes, they certainly have a tall task ahead of them. I think the Aggies, and Mike Elko obviously did a very good job this year. But my question about the Aggies is, were they actually that much better this year, or was the schedule that much easier this year? I think that's the question about Texas A&M, and we're going to find out in the future. Because honestly, I'm going to be real. I don't think Texas A&M is that much better than Tennessee. Like, if you gave Tennessee Texas A&M schedule, I think we finished 11-1 too. And we probably have about the same outcome that we did. Because
if you compare, for example, this year's schedule to, for example, 2020, when was the last time they had a great season, it was far more accomplished, because they beat they only lost to the number 2 team, Alabama. They beat number 4 Florida. They beat LSU. There was a current national championship. They beat Tennessee on the road. They beat Auburn on the road. So I feel like the 2020 schedule was way harder than, for example, this year's.
I think that 2020 Texas A&M game may be the most miserable I've ever been in a football game, without our Kentucky from that year. Especially being in the booth and I couldn't react emotionally. Yeah, that was just, it was excruciating, to say the least. But yeah, A&M, we'll see how they recover from this. Definitely a generational hate watch for Texas fans, though. Both Oklahoma and A&M go down in flames at home. It doesn't get any better for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I feel like Texas ended their season on the highest note possible, because they were left out, but they fell in, like, kind of sense. Because if you think about it, like, there's even a discussion there. Is it Notre Dame how much Notre Dame deserved to be in way more than Texas did? Because I know Texas had a 3 loss, but the strength of schedule of Texas and those losses were way higher than Notre Dame, and to
Mhm.
see their both arch rivals, uh, losing at home in the playoffs can't get any better. Like you know, it's harder to have one arch rival. Texas has two main arch rivals, and seeing them both fall apart at home. I mean, for the Longhorns, it was a great ending,
Mhm.
and
One.
they're still gonna play their bowl game, and it feels like they're gonna be really favored because I I mean, how Michigan Wolverines are gonna get. I'm still surprised they're still in this bowl game.
Absolutely. I mean, what are the odds they're just going to go with Biff Poggi to be their coach? Like, there's no way they can make him permanent head coach, can they? Like, I mean, that just would be an insane situation. Now, granted, apparently, the number one candidate right now for Michigan is Jeff Brom from Louisville. So that would be an interesting
And
hire potentially.
and now I guess all the rumors for calendar board to Michigan are all gone because
Yeah.
I would have seen it maybe if Bama would lose by like a double digit loss or like if that 17-0 would have been like a 34-7, then maybe. But now winning on the road in the playoffs, I don't think Calendar Board is gonna leave, or like Michigan's gonna have the money to pay buy him out.
Yeah, I think Kalen DeBoer, he's slowly winning over all the Bama fans. Like, at least the Bama fans that I know all really like DeBoer. Granted, the ones I know are sane, so maybe some of the more insane ones don't like him. But it's like how the insane Tennessee fans don't like Heupel anymore. It's just it's fanatics, right? If you don't win every game, the coach sucks, basically for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for Cristobal, for DeBoer, though, the wins were massive. The wins were absolutely massive, and make these years for both teams a success. Especially considering that when you look back at DeBoer and Alabama, the way the season started off as such a disaster. The loss of Florida State and being able to recover from that was massive, and then for Cristobal to be able to overcome two upsets again in the ACC and be able to go on the road and win, despite maybe not having their best offense. I mean, I think that's good too.
Oh yeah, I think especially for Cristobal because the board is on his second year, but like of course last year they were the first team out of the playoffs, and definitely the way they start their season, the way they turn around, because they have the sour taste of being left out at the end of the season. Then they started losing to Florida State, where didn't have a good season in 2024, and then you know find a way to to the SEC championship, where which it all pointed to Texas A&M getting in. So you know of course they still have the quarterfinals game, but with all the things that happened throughout the season, it's been good for the board and for Cristobal too, because you know, uh, the choking part was massive because the proof when it actually mattered in the playoffs that he's able to not choke, or his team at least.
Right. Um, and I think on Alabama too. Like after that Florida State loss, like I was mercilessly mocking them like crazy. I kind of thought Alabama as the big scary team was done, but hey, they proved that they can still go out there and get it done. And after they got a huge one next week. But before we get to this next week, we got to address the other two playoff games. Ole Miss blowing out Tulane, Oregon blowing out James Madison. Not really surprises there. This is leading to a massive discussion for whether or not these teams should even be there in the G5. And it's just, guess like the product wasn't good. The product was not good on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. And we got to sit back and ask, okay, you know, what is the point of the college football playoff, right? We want to have more games. We want to have more teams have an opportunity. But do we really want to sit around and watch just a bunch of blowouts? Like
Yeah, because when this system was imagined by fans. It would be like, hey, we don't want to left out the 5 ranked, 6 ranked, or 7 ranked, and we want them in to have bigger games.
Mhm.
And but I uh, I guess the anti the reason that the G5 got in, I think, was the like antitrust. But I feel like they should have been like some sort of a FBS top division and a FBS lower division. Like, I know there's FCS. FCS is the uh, uh, first division B of college football, and FBS is first division A. From
Mhm.
what I learned throughout the years of watching and covering college football, but now there should be like a A1, A2, and then B or something like that. Like there's got to be something between FBS and FCS, or like create like a new FCS with the G5, then put FDS for the the Montana State, Montana, Illinois, because you know because the something Joe Cladd said, like, there should be a playoff for JMU, for Tulane, for the Sun Belt teams, for the American teams, for MAC. Those conferences are in one level, and Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC are in another level. The Pac-12, it's still, I feel like, should be still. I would have still put it in my second division, because the teams are not as good. But yeah, it's a reasonable discussion to have in terms of the teams to get in, and not putting just to be inclusive.
Mhm. Right. And I mean, you called it last week. I mean, you called it was a DEI system for the G5. And uh, when you really sit back and look at this, I think the biggest problem that we really haven't addressed when it comes to G5 is you're not going to get the same type of teams that you used to. You're not going to get the 2000s Boise State or late 2000s TCU or 2017 UCF anymore.
Or even the Cincinnati
For
20. The, those teams truly deserve to get in, because they were undefeated. They had good wins. They earn it. That's the problem. Uh, if it wasn't this inclusion system, Tulane and JMU schedules had nothing to said they deserve to be there.
Right. Well, I mean, Tulane more so. Tulane did beat the ACC champions in Duke, so there is that, and beat Northwestern, who's a bowl team. Um, so Tulane, I think, had an argument legitimately. Um, James Madison didn't know. James Madison didn't have any big good wins at all, basically.
I mean, they lost to Louisville. If maybe they would have been Louisville, maybe, but even they lost their toughest opponent.
Right, right. And Louisville yesterday won the Boca Raton Bowl, so they didn't have a great season themselves. Um, the thing about it is, I think you are going to have to go to a system where the G5 is different, because all the top teams just raid the transfer portal every single year. They raid all these teams. They can't keep their players. Um, so you're not going to get senior laden teams, and that's what you need at the G5. You need senior laden teams that can go and cause problems. Like, look at 2009 Utah beating the crap out of Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, or of course Boise State beating Oklahoma, and TCU beating Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. Those were senior laden teams. You don't get that anymore. I mean, last year was a bit of an aberration with Ashton Genty and Boise State, because that team was good enough, legitimately, to be in the playoffs because of what they had taken. They took Oregon to the wire in Eugene, and like they didn't get embarrassed by Penn State. I mean, they played decently well in that game. Like Cincinnati played decently well with Alabama a couple years ago in the playoffs. Um, but none of these teams this year were going to. And honestly, it's going to be really hard moving forward to see any G5 team being able. Like, think about this, like the JMU, for example. Like, that coach is going to UCLA. How many of those JMU players are going with him to UCLA? Or Tulane, John Summerall, after getting blown up by Ole Miss, how many of his players are going with him to Florida? Like, I'm sure the best players in both of those places are not going to be there anymore.
Do you know who really had who got the worst deal of all of this? TNT, because TNT does not broadcast, or I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting something, but as I'm aware of, they don't go in a regular season. They don't broadcast
They
during the
do
regular.
broadcast a Big 12 game every week, but
So they have,
it's usually not the top Big 12 game. It's usually like the third or fourth best game every week.
and the Big 12 is not a conference that offers a lot of great matchups. So if they have those Big 12 second, third, or even fourth tier matchups, they're not the prime time games. So those were the prime time, the games of TNT to broadcast in college football, and they got the worst deal out of it because those games were not interesting. So TNT has needs to come to the table and say, hey, there's got to be a system where we have better matchups, or else why am I paying millions of dollars to get those two quarterfinal games? And those were the games that, weren't competitive.
Now think about this. What if we had had Notre Dame at Ole Miss and Texas at Oregon?
Would have been massive, massive ratings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally would have been. And I think we're going to have to seriously consider going back to that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you.
And yeah, and of course, college football is always tweaking, and definitely there's gonna be some rethinking after this year. Like last year, they had to rethink, uh, the buys, because of the what happened in the playoffs last year. So, and of course, all of this because they got to come to the ACC and find better. They like having the best overall record needs to be the first tie break, not the winning. The ACC, like, because all this happened because the ACC tiebreak screw everything up. I mean, Duke, they won the conference. I mean, the rules were there. Duke were legitimate, but they need to be rethink about these rules.
Right. And like if you're going to have guaranteed conference championship spots, these conferences are not equal. These conferences are so big. No one can have equal schedules. Um, I really honestly think we really should think about just getting rid of conference championships altogether. In terms of the way we think about them for the playoffs. I mean, I really don't think you should care who wins the Big Ten or the SEC or the ACC or the Big 12.
No, or,
Just put
or
the best 12 teams in there. And I guess that goes against everything we've ever said about Notre Dame. But
yeah, I know. But yeah, at the end of the day, this argument strains Notre Dame. But if we go to that direction, there's even I think when you got rid of the divisions, like for example in the SEC, then you just do like what basketball do, crown the regular season champions.
mhm. Yeah, and then like Big Ten this year, you would have had co-champions in Ohio State and Indiana. But like in that case, I guess you just have a co-champion. You know, so like
Yeah,
I like the ACC would have sent Virginia instead of Duke in that situation because Virginia was the only ACC team to finish with one conference loss. So definitely, though, I did think that James Madison showed a better fight than Tulane, but neither one of those games were competitive. And I'm curious to see how this affects future playoff games because I would like to have more than two competitive playoff games, because that was not interesting or fun.
no, yeah, definitely. Uh, the TV, I think TNT executives needs to call and say, hey, again, when TV is the one that holds sports together. I mean, when because they're footing the bill. When you foot the bill, you need to have a say in how the sports are done.
Right. So like, and I'm pulling up some of the ratings. College football playoff ratings dropped 7% from last year. They averaged 9.9 million viewers. Alabama, um, so Oregon's game only drew 4.4 million viewers. I was going straight up against the Chicago Bears versus Green Bay, which got 21.3 million. Meanwhile, Ohio State, Tennessee last year had 14.3. So a lot
Yeah,
more people watched us get our, rear ends kicked last year because obviously we're a big brand. Now Bama, Oklahoma got 14.9.
yeah. TNT executives look at that and say, of course ESPN got the best deal out of it because they had the two more attractive games in
Yeah, and
terms of,
Miami A&M got 14.8. Then Ole Miss Tulane only got 6.2. So people don't want to watch the G5. Clearly, if you
yeah,
look at the, they don't want to watch the G5. I mean, it just. I'm sorry. Like, I wish that weren't the case. That's just the case. I think you should like look at this and be like, okay, G5. If you earn your way into the top 12, great. But you can't just give them freebie spots when you could be giving it to better teams that would give us much better games than this.
yeah. And as much as we talk shit about Notre Dame throughout the season, I mean, it was a pity they were left out because definitely it would have been a way better matchup. Texas, even Vandy and BYU, we had all those great stories, those great teams that perhaps deserve a spot, but they were left out because of this weird system that was designed. I mean, I was looking at some old footage of college football. I mean, I understood why they created the BCS, then the 14 playoff, because in the past it was more like a kind of like a Premier League kind of way. You don't play number one, number two in the playoffs. So it was more like you had the bowl games, and if the number one loses and the number two wins, then the number two would have been the national champions and all of that. But now we create this kind of weird system where rankings they matter but not really. You had spots for weaker teams because they were guaranteed because of the conference. I mean, it's just um, something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I would like to have a much more legitimate national championship than we do now. Um, but I mean, really, it's not like it's hard though. You're never going to have it like the NFL because all the conferences aren't the same. Like it's not the same quality level across the board. So I think it's inevitable. You're always going to have more blowouts in college football than the NFL, and then that's the very truth of it. College football has a lot more blowouts than the NFL. And that will never change because teams can accumulate talent in college football in a way that the NFL can't.
Yeah, because of this new wild west of NIL and transfer portal, this made the disparity even more because not in a long, in a not so distant past, years ago, like it was harder to transfer. I remember there were like players that needed to sit out for a season for transferring. There was no NIL. Of course, there was the back pay NIL that some schools allegedly use, especially in the SEC, but was more even out. Now, with this new and unknown world of transfer portal and NIL, the disparities are even more because in the NFL you have salary cap, luxury tax, draft that kind of even out the competition. Because a team only my New York Jets have the ability to be bad for 15 years. Like if you're really competent front office and GM or head coach, you don't stay that long sucking. Like you can stay a couple of years. Then, for example, the Broncos, I think 3 years ago were in the bottom. Now they lead the AFC because the NFL system allows you to have draft picks, work out in a salary cap. and you'll be good again. In college football, because the money is more, you know, uneven divide. The strong get stronger and the weak get weaker.
Well, I said that was well put indeed. Um, let's get into some of the quarterfinal matches that are coming up next weekend. So the first game is on New Year's Eve. It's Miami and Ohio State rematch of the 2002 national championship that ended the Miami dynasty to begin with. So there's a bit of a poetic, arc here, right? Like if Miami were to upset Ohio State, it would definitely mark their return. The team that kind of knocked them out of their dynasty to begin with, all the way back in 2002. Now, the thing we're going to have to really watch for in all four of these games is the four teams that had the bye last year all lost. And there's a question of were the byes a bad thing? Because we've seen this in MLB happen a lot over the past couple of years where the teams that got the byes would go on and lose because they lost some momentum. And because these byes are so long, these byes are like 4 weeks long, I think that could be a factor in every single game. Now, when I look at Miami and Ohio State, go ahead.
And also, what increases this kind of bias that when you have like a home game, for example, in the MLB, at least you have your home crowd to energize you. And now it's a neutral site.
Yeah, and that's also the other stupid thing too. Like, yes, you get a top four and you get a bye, but you don't get to host a game. I think that's unfair. Because, like, if you're one of the four best teams, you deserve to get a chance to play a home game.
Like last season, how much meant for Ohio State after losing to Michigan, host a playoff game in their stadium, have a really convincing, blowout against Tennessee. How much that affected Ohio State's journey in the playoffs?
Oh, I mean, it impacted it a ton. It was
Yeah,
absolutely crucial and massive. So we'll see what this does for everyone in here. Of course, Miami coming off a big road win. Now, I do think from a physical standpoint, Miami can hang with Ohio State. Like, Miami has the athletes, they have the dudes to go toe to toe. Now, I don't know if Carson Beck is good enough to win this football game. And I think that's the big thing here. I think Carson Beck's going to have to show that he can make some big time throws that I think at times he has struggled to pull off. And he's going to have to avoid being turnover prone, which is going to be hard against a really good Ohio State defense. And then on the other side, right, can you turn over Julian Sand? Can you make him uncomfortable? I think that'll be what this game comes down to between Carson Beck and Julian Sand. Like, you would think that Jeremiah Smith is going to get his for Ohio State. You would think that Bo Jackson's going to get his. I like the weapons more for Ohio State, but then again, the weapons for Miami are good. Like Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels are both very good wide receivers as well for Miami. And you look at Mario Cristobal and Ryan Day. Cristobal's 1-0 against Ryan Day. Cristobal took his Oregon Ducks when he was there, took them to Columbus and beat Ohio State in Ohio State, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think, and Miami's playing with house money. Then I think all the pressure is on Ohio State because they are on a path to a dynasty, especially if they win the second time. All the pundits are saying that Ohio State, even us, were making our predictions say Ohio State was going to win it all. So for Miami, not having the pressure, and it says of vengeance because you mentioned that 2002 college football national championship game, and Miami fans are still felt robbed that the referees on that game were way more favorable to Ohio State than Miami.
Oh, absolutely. So I mean, it would be a full circle moment. Games in Dallas. I just think Ohio State has a bit too much, especially on defense, for Miami to win this game. I think Ohio State wins by like 2 touchdowns.
I'm gonna go with Miami. I think Miami upsets Ohio State, but it's gonna be by. I think it's gonna be a close game, a low-scoring game.
Hmm. Yeah, so the next playoff game, I believe, is the Orange Bowl. Yes, the Orange Bowl. It's Oregon and Texas Tech in Miami, noon on New Year's Day.
First of all, like, uh, I know it's a weird scenario, but I mean, I feel how much cooler if there was the other way around, like the Orange Bowl hosting Miami and Ohio State, and the Cotton Bowl hosting Texas Tech and Oregon. I think it would be way cooler.
It would be a lot cooler. It would be unfair to Ohio State because they're the higher seed, so I know why
Yeah,
it doesn't happen. But if it were the other way around, I think Miami would deserve to get a chance to host the Orange Bowl.
yeah,
100%. Now, in this particular game, you look at Oregon, and some people are bringing up the whole, JMU scored 34 points and had over 500 yards of offense. Okay, well, most of that happened against the backups. Like,
yeah. It was a garbage time.
yeah, like that doesn't mean anything. Oregon could have won that thing 100-0 if they wanted to. They did not. Obviously, Texas Tech, it will be a much more worthy opponent. And the thing about Texas Tech is, I think everyone, when they think of Texas Tech, they think of an offensive juggernaut. This is not that Texas Tech team. This is a defensive first team led by Jacob Rodriguez. And I think that Texas Tech defense is going to be hearing all week, but hello, Oregon's just much faster than you. They get paid more. They have better athletes, or Nike's top brand school. I think Texas Tech's going to have a point to prove in this football game. That everyone talks about the Big Ten and the SEC, but everyone just kind of forgets about us because we were in the lowly Big 12. And granted, Texas Tech, their best one was BYU. They only lost to Arizona State with their backup quarterback. When Baron Morton's been starting, they have been undefeated this season. So to me, I think the big question is just how good is Texas Tech? So I think they're pretty good, personally.
Yeah, but they're being kind of overlooked throughout this season. Of course, Oregon has way more to prove because they have been this really good football team in the past, like 2 or 3 years, but haven't accomplished anything. So I think, and the only loss Texas Tech had was on the road against this really tricky Arizona State team, and they were able to win convincingly after that. Blowing out Oklahoma State, blowing out BYU, which was the semi-ranked, blowing out BYU again in the conference. So
Right. And I think, when you take a look at that, and, when you look at the backup quarterback situation and everything, like this team has performed up to standard. Because I remember in the offseason, I picked Texas Tech to win the Big 12. I'm like, I think that roster they've got is the best roster they've ever had. And it's really come and played out to fruition. But I will say this, though. If this is a tight game at the end, do I trust Baron Morton, who this will be by far the biggest moment of his career? Or do I trust a guy like Dante Moore, who went to Happy Valley, got it done in overtime, who has some other big wins under his belt? I think this is going to be a very tight game. I've got Oregon winning this thing by like a field goal.
I'm gonna go. I'll bet the over. I think it's gonna be Oregon by a touchdown.
Yeah, I will say this. I think Dan Lanning has more pressure on him than anyone in this football game.
Oh yeah, I think in this playoff, I think in the playoffs, Dan Lanning is the coach has the more pressure than anybody to win.
Oh, absolutely. Because if he loses to Texas Tech here, I think there's going to be some real questions of, can Dan Lanning actually get it done in the playoffs? Joey, no one's talking about Joey McGuire, the coach for Texas Tech. No one's talking about him.
And it would be comparisons. Is Dan Lanning, the new,
James Franklin.
yeah, is Dan Lanning the James Franklin 2.0?
I think that would certainly be the conversation, or maybe like defensive Lane Kiffin or something like that. if this happens.
I think more be like James Franklin because James Franklin, you know, was what is the argument? Oh, Penn State had great teams, always on the top, but never accomplished anything. That's what Dan Lanning feels the pressure of.
Yeah. And of course, if they win this game, there's a chance that they get a rematch with Indiana. But that all depends on what happens in the Rose Bowl, because we have the Alabama Crimson Tide, fresh off that comeback, going back to Pasadena to take on Indiana. Remember, the last time Alabama was in Pasadena, Gus, probably, honestly, one of the best college football games I've ever watched was that Alabama-Michigan game. Like, that thing was peak college football. I mean, I might hate both of the teams involved, but that was peak college football. Like, especially that overtime, then the way Michigan was able to win that thing at the goal line, like that thing was insane. I'll never forget watching that thing in the car on the way back from the Citrus Bowl.
That was, I think, it should be in the top 10 greatest matchups in college football history because two legendary coaches, Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh, uh, you know, peak rosters. Definitely, that game was something else, and the way they ended, with Alabama, on a 4th and goal, and the Michigan defense were able to stop them again.
Yeah, and it was Saban's final game. It was Harbaugh's second to last game. Just an absolute, and the end of the 14 playoff. I mean, that was basically the real national championship that year. I mean, it was a magical game, an absolutely magical game with it being the Rose Bowl. It doesn't just feel like this Alabama Indiana game is going to be magical too. Like I just have a feeling this thing is going to be crazy. But to me, the pressure's on Indiana. Like, okay, like you beat Ohio State, Big Ten title game, you're undefeated again. There's Alabama. Kirk Cignetti, Google me, I win. Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman. It's time to prove it. Go beat that SEC.
They are if you think about it, in the past they would have been because this new system kind of devalues having undefeated regular season because now you have even with 3 losses you get in like the 20 years ago Indiana's campaign would have been way more valued. So, but they earned this number 1 seed, but they need to prove it now with this in the quarterfinals that they are the best team in college football.
Yeah, and when you look at that Indiana Ohio State game, like Indiana, they have made a lot of strides this year on the trenches. Like they were able to go pound for pound for Ohio State, and that theoretically should translate over to Alabama. Now, if you're Alabama, you've not been able to run the football. You got to find a way to establish something. Because I think if you're asking Ty Simpson to win the game on his own, I don't think that's a good recipe for success for Alabama. I think they're going to need to find a way to get some balance. They're going to have to find a way to get some turnovers. Fernando Mendoza doesn't turn over the ball very much. I think, that pass rush, I think, Yancey Pierre is going to have a massive game for Alabama. But I do think that when you look at the Indiana receivers, like these guys are pretty good. Elijah Sherrod, who's going to be an NFL guy. I think Charlie Becker, who's been very solid. Omar Cooper, of course, a legendary catch at Penn State. To me, Indiana does feel like a little bit of a team of destiny, right? And I think, this one, it's kind of a weird. If Saban versus Harbaugh was the ultimate clash of egos, DeBoer and Cignetti is we're trying to prove ourselves game here. Like DeBoer is like, okay, we beat Oklahoma. We need to. I want to continue to get these fans off my back because I might not be Nick Saban, but I'm Kalen DeBoer. And then there's you got Kirk Cignetti, who has a me versus the world mentality anyway, and has had since the moment he stepped in Indiana because, well, he's like, well, I'm at a place where there's literally nothing to lose. And I do think that we think in theory that Indiana is going to have the pressure here. I don't know if Indiana is going to feel like they're going to have the pressure, with the way Cignetti prepares his teams.
Definitely, Kurt Signetti, I like the way that he been kind of, because sometimes you win games off the field as well. You create a narrative. I think Indiana's created a narrative where they are the undefeated number one team, but they still feel overlooked. They still feel like they need to prove something, and they keep feeding that. With this Google me, I win. It's more like, hey, everybody doubt Indiana, and we're still here. But they need to prove that when in the playoffs. I know for Indiana that Ohio State win was significant because it shows their power in their conference. But now it's time to face the big boys in the SEC.
Hmm. Absolutely. And honestly, I think Indiana's going to get it done.
I'm gonna go Indiana, but it's gonna be really close. I think it's gonna
It's
be.
very close. I agree. Um, this is a game where Indiana kind of proves that, yeah, we can do this. Because they've already proven they can do this when they did it at Oregon, when they beat Ohio State the first time. You know, I think they're more than ready to prove they belong. The last quarterfinal, Sugar Bowl, it's a rematch. It's Ole Miss and Georgia. Of course, it's Lane Kifflin-less Ole Miss. And this is where we're going to really find out, I think, truly just how much does Ole Miss actually miss Lane Kiffin, right? Because, yeah, you went against Tulane, but like Tulane did not have the resources to provide resistance. Georgia does, and I'll be honest, Georgia the last month or so has been playing out of their mind in terms of football. Like some really good wins, they're playing very well on defense. Which the defense was not good early on in the year. Like Joey Aguilar had like 500 yards passing on him in week 3, but now Georgia's defense is really kind of settled in, and I think to me, I feel like Georgia's primed to run away with this one because it was a good close game the first time. I just feel like Georgia's gonna dominate this time.
Yeah, definitely. Georgia's way more favorite, but having that home game, the way they needed this morale win after losing their head coach, and of what an irony, they have to go to New Orleans, Louisiana, where Lane Kiffin is going to be the coach there. It's like an hour away from Baton Rouge. I'm wondering even if he's going to be there in the stands.
Well, if he knows better, he will not be there in the stands. Um,
But but deep down, that it would be such a Lane Kiffin thing to
it
do.
would it would be so funny. I hope he does. I really hope he does because that would be absolute cinema.
Yeah.
That'd be more entertaining than I think the actual game is going to be. But I mean, if Ole Miss is going to win this game, Trinidad Chambliss is going to have the game of his life, and I just don't think that's going to happen. I have Georgia by at least 2 to 3 scores here.
I'm gonna go with Ole Miss. I think they're gonna pull up the upset.
I really hope so. I hope you're right. I just don't think Georgia's going to New Orleans 2 straight years in a row and getting beat again. Because last year they had no offense at all. I think Georgia will be coming back to a silent submission. Yeah. Also, shout out to the FCS, the Montana State dominating the Grizzlies. I know, obviously, for your uncle, that's not the result that you wanted there, but I mean that season in Bozeman was absolutely nuts in the cold, snowing, and it was a crazy game because Montana State got up at 20, Montana came back, and then Montana State just absolutely ramroded them in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we talked on our WhatsApp group that this was the biggest football game in the state of Montana, the first time ever they met in the playoffs, and unfortunately the Grizzlies kind of fell apart, especially in the fourth quarter. And but that's the kind of playoff games we want to watch. Uh, come, not blowouts. Even though it was a blowout, it was a competitive back and forth game.
Right, right. It was a game of runs, and there was just so much there, and That's the thing with the FCS is they play on campus until the national title game. And I wish we could do that in college football. But unfortunately, the bowl games just have too much power.
Yeah, and even in the bowl games were like, okay, we gave you we gave you the first round, because if you really think about it, um, the first rounds, there were even if the bowl games really wanted to use their full power, they could have been like, hey, why don't you do other bowl games in the first round? Why don't you, you know, throw the Relia Quest Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, even the Duke Mayo Bowl. But they realize, that the appeal of having playoff games on college campuses were higher than getting those second tier kind of bowl games into the conversation.
Yeah, it's it's a correct system, but Montana State, I think they're going to be a heavy favorite in their title game against Illinois State. Of course, Illinois State upset North Dakota State on their way to the championship game. They beat Villanova the other day. This game's going to be at Vanderbilt Stadium here in a few weeks. I do think the Bobcats, though, are going to win the national championship.
I think it didn't feel like the real national championship was in Bozeman.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
I think Montana State is going to win the national championship. I think it's going to be. I'll bet the over. I don't think it's going to be a double-digit wins like the spread says, but I think Montana State, and it's unfortunate because Villanova. Imagine if they won the FCS football, they would have been the few ones that win uh, in the top division in basketball and the lower division in football. How weird is that?
Yeah, Villanova, I think they won some back in the 2000s in football, in addition to the ones they've won in basketball. So they've had a pretty good football program for a while. I don't know why they don't try to go up to a higher level in football, but I guess they decided they would like a playoff game they can win.
Yeah, and also they're like, hey, we're the top dogs in basketball. We have that in football. Let's stay in the FCS.
Yeah, it works out perfectly for their athletic program. Now, speaking of postseason play, our Vols, and this time next week will be going to Nashville. Right now, Gus, so it's in the 70s here in Tennessee. It's amazing weather for Christmas. Next week is going to be 30 degrees for the Music City Bowl, right next to the Cumberland River in downtown Nashville. I have to say, I'm not going to go. A lot of people aren't going. Tickets have fallen to as low as $44. I bet they're going to crater. And I've seen free ticket giveaways for the bowl game. Like, people aren't going to go to this game. And I think there's a lot of angst too because of what happened the last time Tennessee went to this bowl game against Purdue. Like, people think the bowl game is rigged against Tennessee.
Yeah, even though the Music City Bowl loves to have Tennessee, you just know that the program that they love having is Tennessee, because when they have other SEC schools, the bowl feels smaller. When Tennessee goes there, it kind of brings a somewhat of attraction, of course, because it's just 2 hours and 40 minutes away from Knoxville to Nashville. I think there's still people that are gonna go, especially being on a day that a lot of people have off, being close to New Year's Eve. But yeah, it's a I don't because compared to the last time they were in a non-playoff bowl game, which we were there, Citrus Bowl. The hype was, now it's time to see the new, uh, really five-star quarterback Nico Imialava. Everybody was curious about that. Now there's no appeal, nothing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. I keep on forgetting this game's even coming, to be honest with you. I didn't even have it in the
Yeah.
ladder initially. I'm like, oh, I guess we should talk about this. It is a bowl game. Joey's going to play, and I hope Joey goes out a winner. I hope he goes out and plays well. Peyton Lewis, he transferred the other day, so you're going to see a lot more Dwayne Morris in this game at running back. You're not going to see Chris Brazzell. Illinois is a bunch of guys who's opted out. I mean, it's just like I think Tennessee's going to win, but like I don't know. No outcome would surprise me in this game, and if Tennessee loses, I'm not going to be that upset about
It is this last game for Joey Aguilar, or he can play next season?
Well, there hasn't been a ruling made yet on Diego Pavia, so there is a chance he could come back. Personally, I think it's his last game regardless, because I think Tennessee will go in a different direction at quarterback. Like Joey's been really good for Tennessee, but I do think that Tennessee's trying to go with other options.
I
Because
think,
Joey was just a quick fix for the Nico situation.
yeah, I was gonna say that. I agree with you. It wasn't even a quick fix. Was a desperation fix. Was the availability fix. He was there. He had experience in top division college football. He wanted to transfer. He had you know uh, a lot to prove. I think for what he was thrown at it, he did a decent job. I'll give him a B minus. Of course, everybody expected, probably especially in the Oklahoma game, a better performance. But overall, he did a fine job. He he was gonna be remembered as somebody who stepped in and did the best that he could. I think all Tennessee fans argue that he really stepped in and play his hearts out. But definitely Tennessee needs to look in another direction. If you
I
do,
completely agree with everything you just said. Like, I will love Joey Aguilar forever. Like that, what he did for us this year was awesome. Because he did it about as well as you could expect a quarterback in that situation to do. And he should have gotten that Georgia win. And that's going to make me angry till the end of time that he did not get that win. He deserved to win that Georgia game. But it just didn't work out. And he'll just kind of, as like Jason and I have talked about, he's kind of a cult hero a little bit, He's not going to be one of the guys you talk about as one of the greatest Tennessee quarterbacks ever, but he's going to be kind of like one of those, like, yeah, Joey Aguilar. He came in a tough spot for us, and he got some stuff done. And obviously, I mean, the biggest thing was beating Florida on the road. That was the biggest result that he can claim. And to me, that's the big thing about this season is ending that streak. Even if everything else this year wasn't particularly amazing, beating Florida and Florida was awesome. So I hope the boys can go out there and get it done. I'm curious how the defense will look without Tim Banks. William Inge is the interim. Jim Knowles hasn't started coaching yet. So we'll see what they look like. I don't know. Like, I'm just not surprised with any outcome. Like, I think Tennessee wins it, but man, I don't know. Hopefully we don't get screwed again. Like, hopefully all touchdowns that get counted are actual touchdowns this time.
yeah.
Okay. Are there any other bowl games you care about?
First and foremost, shout out to my grandma. Now she's watching us, Emilia Camargo. Beijo, vó. Beijo, vó. Feliz Natal, vó. Beijo, beijo. My grandma's watching us as well. I can see her watching us. Vó, beijo. And Gustavo Barbudo as well, watching us. Thank you, Barbudo. Gustavo Barbudo say Merry Christmas, especially to the greatest Santa oath. Oh, thank you, thank you. I dress up as kind of like a real Bronco Santa as well, so that was fun at work today.
Did you get to see me hanging out with Santa Claus today?
What?
Did you get to see me hanging out with Santa Claus today on the
Yeah,
news?
I saw that. I saw that too.
Yeah. So we're all hanging out with Santa Claus today.
Yeah. And some even dress up as Santa because we opened the Rio Bronco store for just in the morning for some last minute, and there were people who bought some Christmas gifts there, and I dress up as Santa. But I guess you're gonna ask about any bowl games care about. I think the ReliaQuest Bowl is interesting because can Vandy finish up this amazing season with a bowl game win?
I think to me that's the one that's even semi interesting because I'll be rooting very, very hard for Iowa. I want Iowa to beat them so bad, just so it could be like, look, okay, what did you do this year, Vandy? What did you really do? You know? And he was like, well, we beat you. I'm like, okay. And
Yeah, you had nothing to show for. Diego Pavia did not win the Heisman, no bowl title. Nothing. We end even Tennessee can make fun of it if they win the bowl game. Like we won our bowl game, you lost. But I mean, I think Ben is gonna win.
I would expect that too. I think also the Pop Tarts Bowl, Georgia Tech BYU, because I think both programs actually want to be in that game. And also it's just kind of the haha laugh at Notre Dame game because they didn't want to play in this game. And obviously
And
people love
also,
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
And also too, the Pop Tarts Bowl just makes itself fun. Like with the Pop Tarts mascots and all the other crazy stuff that happens at that game. Like, if you're still gonna have these random bowl games, make them fun.
Yeah, I agree. I feel it's so interesting that you have those, and for people in Orlando, you have two great bowl games, because also the Citrus Bowl, Texas and Michigan is always good to see big brands. Arch Manning, I guess, is gonna play, but overall, can Michigan overcome all the drama and finish the season on top? Because I don't know if they can do that.
Right. Also, what about Penn State, Clemson, Pinstripe Bowl? These two were preseason top 5, and then they're playing at Yankee Stadium in the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't think our program was expecting to be there.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're just a
And
bowl.
yeah, it's a kind of hangover bowl.
Yeah. Also, I think the Hawaii Bowl tonight, Cal Hawaii, could be pretty fun. That game tends to be pretty wild. And also, what about Mississippi State going to the Mayo Bowl just by being 5-7 because of all the opt outs? Like it just, we have too many bowl games. We've got 5-7 teams in bowl games.
The last time I remember at COVID season 2020, there were those I guess the last time was there, and even so funny that Tennessee had a horrible season and was allowed to play in the Liberty Bowl, but in the end they got themselves out of it. But now with the opt outs are the new COVID in college football, because now we have teams with 5-7, but because it was not only Mississippi State that had like a losing record. Rice went to a bowl game with a losing record.
Washington State did.
Yeah, Utah State did as well.
Yeah, so it's just a whole bunch of random games.
Appalachian State as well. So there were a handful of examples of losing record going to the bowl games.
Yeah. I will say, though, at least the funniest moment of bowl season was Master Chief handing Butch Jones the Xbox Bowl trophy. Now, that was straight comedy and befitting of Butch Jones. I mean, Butch Jones was once the head coach at Tennessee, one of the most prestigious programs, and now he's getting handed trophies from video game characters.
Yeah, I mean, it was another accomplishment for him, Xbox Bowl, Champions of Life, so many accomplishments.
Yeah. Oh, man. But in any case, playoffs, I guess, if we do it next Wednesday, we'll probably be doing it during the first playoff game. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I guess let's shoot. I know we kind of prepping, but let's shoot the pod for Tuesday, so then we can analyze the semifinal games.
Yeah, well, the semifinal games won't even be. Well, we won't even know the semifinal games till Thursday of next week.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Is the first playoff game is next Wednesday night on New Year's Eve, and then the other three are on Thursday. hopefully nothing crazy like last year happens where we have to push the one of the games back an extra day, like the terrorist attack in New
Yeah,
Orleans. So hopefully
yeah,
we can actually just play everything on the game on the day that we expect to. Some quick basketball. Lady Vols are kind of struggling a little bit. They got blown up by Louisville the other day. They really didn't have an impressive follow-up game to that against Southern Indiana. I don't think this team is very good. And I just feel like some of the excitement around that program has fallen out. Now, granted, there's a lot of people who are still blaming them for Tony Vitello leaving, which still makes zero sense. Like, guys, no college baseball program is going to out convince an MLB team. Like, stop. It just is what it is there. So don't blame, the Lady Vols for that. But that being said, Lady Vols are struggling. And I do wonder if the style of Kim Caldwell, the platoon subbing, and I don't know if it's going to be truly effective in the long run. It's really entertaining. It's fun to watch, but we've seen a couple of times now against top tier competition, it gets exposed a little bit.
yeah. I thought Kim Caldwell definitely was gonna, be the answer, because I mean she had to step in big because when she was hired, we talked about how she was, the first head coach in Lady Vols after, that was out of the Pat Summit tree, so she needed a lot to, fill in, and uh, as of right now not doing so good, but I think I think she's gonna stay at least 1 or 2 more seasons.
Yeah. I mean, she's in no danger of getting fired right now. But hopefully they can kind of get things going in conference play coming up soon. The Basketballs are just they're kind of in a bit of a bye after the big Louisville win last week. They blew out Gardner Webb the other day by like 60. I didn't watch that game because I find the game kind of pointless. They play South Carolina State this weekend. Again, find the game a little pointless. Their next actual game is at Arkansas. So we'll catch back up with them then.
Yeah, because right now, those games were kind of like prep games for the SEC schedule. Of course, getting the big win against Louisville definitely got the team back on track because there were some hefty losses before that. So yeah, I agree. Like, next year the basketballs they have a challenge. When they start the SEC schedule.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely revisit them when we get closer to time. All right, let's get into some NFL because, man, this week was insane. Of course, we were on air last week during the end of the Rams-Seahawks game, which that was one of the best games of the entire season, the Seahawks miracle comeback. But then on Saturday night, the Bears, they were down by 10 with 2 minutes left. Cairo Santos hits a field goal and then executes the onside kick. Romeo Doubs drops the onside kick. Chicago goes down, scores a touchdown. Then Green Bay gets the ball, fumbles it, and then Caleb Williams hits a miracle shot to DJ Moore for the win. That was one of the most exciting endings I've ever seen in the NFL. Like, that was incredible television. And, like, Chicago, like, that almost felt like that was, like, the NFL version of, like, Tennessee beating Bama. Because, Bears-Packers is the biggest rivalry in the NFL.
Yeah, and especially, it represented a lot from this new era of Chicago Bears, the new head coach, Caleb Williams, delivering a great performance. So it really showed that Chicago, if they make it to the postseason, is definitely gonna be a really tough team to beat.
They are. They are. I mean, defensively,
They
they're
are,
very offensively, they've got 2 very good running backs. They've got a quarterback who's really growing and maturing. They got to get a bit healthy. And I think for Green Bay, they're just so injured at this point. Like, we don't know what Jordan Love's stats is going to be like. We don't know if he's going to be able to play this week. Obviously, Michael Parsons being out last week. Like, I feel like pound for pound, like when they're healthy, the Packers are the best team in the NFC North, but they're just too injured at this point, in my view. And then, like, they're still fine there. I think they'll still make the playoffs, but I just don't think they're going to win anything there because of all the injuries.
Yeah, Green Bay is like KC. They're so depleted that even though they had a really good quarterback, it's hard to overcome that.
Right, right. Now I still think Green Bay is a lot better than KC. As KC's just given up at this point. I mean, shout out to the Tennessee Titans for winning their third game of the year. 3 more games than I thought they were going to win. And honestly, and on a serious note, the Titans have played a lot better this month. Not that it really means anything, right? Like, I mean, it's the end of the year. Like, they were already so bad. But, you know, before the season, there was a part of me when I looked at the schedule that hoped, okay, the first 2 to 3 months are probably going to be really rough. But maybe there's some winnable games on the back stretch there, especially if Cam Ward continues to improve. And I'm going to say this right now. Cam Ward, he's starting to become that guy. Like, I've been really impressed with Cam Ward the past couple of weeks. Like, some of the throws he's been able to make. I mean, he doesn't have any good wide receivers. Like, his receiving core is horrible. But he's still out there making just insane throws. And if we can get this guy a legitimate weapon or two, like, there might be a universe where the Titans football is watchable again. And it might be sooner rather than later. Like, I'm actually, there's for the first time in a while, I'm like, okay, I see a little bit of hope potentially, but we're gonna have to make a lot of really good moves in the next couple of off seasons. But I think we've got a quarterback.
Yeah, and who would have thought Tennessee Titans would have beat by double digits the Kansas City Chiefs? Who would have
Right.
thought at the beginning of the season?
Well, obviously, if you told me they didn't have Patrick Mahomes, I'm like, okay, well, that's possible. That's probably more likely, especially the fact that they lost Gardner Minshew, and they're playing with some guy I've never even heard of, Chris Oladikin. So it's just a rough situation for KC. And also, they're making a lot of their fans mad too, guys. You see where they're moving to Kansas out of Missouri? Like, they're moving to the other side where, like, the soccer stadium is in KC and, like, where the racetrack is on the Kansas side instead of being on the Missouri side.
Yeah, I mean, and those two states have a big in sports wise hate for each other. What's more than Kansas Jayhawks and the Missouri Tigers?
Yeah.
That rivalry in college kind of carries. And Kansas City Chiefs were always able to unify that, even though they were the Missouri side of it. But I guess not being able to have the funding for the the cover of the Arrowhead Stadium. So yeah, because right now it's like the Hunt family definitely wants to have a stadium that they can host the NFL, and for that to happen, especially in the cold weather, like in the Kansas or even the Missouri area, like you need to have a dome stadium.
Yeah, and obviously there's a whole lot of financials there and tax stuff that comes up with every single new sports stadium. At very least, KC's not leaving KC, but they're just going over to the Kansas side. So it's not like they're abandoning Kansas City. They're just going to a different part. It's like when the Braves left downtown Atlanta to go to Cobb County. They're still the Atlanta Braves. And the same thing here for the Kansas City Chiefs when they make this move.
Yeah, it's more dramatic because even though they probably are changing in the same distance mile wise, it's going from one state to the other. It's just the city has the same name on the Missouri side, on the Kansas side.
right. I think the Chicago Bears, considering Northwest Indiana, is more drastic, in my
Yeah,
view.
it's even Fort Wayne, Indiana, is making an appeal for the Chicago Bears. Then it's nonsense. Like you lose all the then I mean, Indiana has a NFL team. Is the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it would be just a completely nonsensical decision to make. But I'm curious to see how both of these stadium situations play out. And speaking of the Colts, you brought them up. Unfortunately, they got blown out by the 49ers the other night, 48-27. I'll say this, Brock Purdy, I think, is playing some of his best football right now. He is on fire with George Kittle and CMC, but also the Colts defense is just falling apart. And you called this a few weeks ago. You indicated you were not impressed with the Indianapolis Colts, as you thought they beat up on some weaker teams early on, and you had some questions about what they were going to do against better competition, and what we've seen, and the results have not been good for
Yeah,
Indianapolis.
and as cute of a story it is, and as great of a person he is, like bring Philip Rivers out of retirement for him to play in the middle of a season was just something that was not gonna work out.
I mean, Philip Rivers played good though. He played really good on Monday night. It was not
No,
his like he doesn't play defense.
yeah, I was not gonna say that he played terribly, but that you needed a more young kind of quarterback to carry this team, like Daniel Jones was playing out. But yeah, definitely, I think Colts are hanging on a balance. They're the first team out, right, in
Yeah.
the playoff.
I think the thing that this looks worse for is Anthony Richardson. Like, how bad is Anthony Richardson still? They'd rather bring Philip Rivers out of retirement, because I was having this debate with Jason. I'm like, look, I get that Rivers is more experienced and he's the borderline Hall of Fame quarterback, but Anthony Richardson's 20 years younger. He's a lot younger, a lot more athletic. Don't you think that could possibly bring something to the table that Philip Rivers can't right now? And he's like, well, Anthony Richardson doesn't know how to play quarterback. And he's right about that. He doesn't know how to play quarterback. There's a reason why Indy is playing with Philip Rivers, because he does know how to play quarterback. And he's obviously knows the foot. Like, look at the way he was doing adjustments at the line Monday night. Like, you don't see a lot of quarterbacks do that anymore. Like, that was taking me back to my childhood, watching quarterbacks changing stuff at the line. It was awesome to watch. Anthony Richardson can't do that.
Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson unfortunately did not, evolve to more like a Lamar Jackson kind of style. And it feels like the Colts offense works better with a pocket passer, Daniel Jones kind of style. Now Philip Rivers, but yeah, but Indianapolis losing, the last 6 out of their last 7 games. I don't think they're gonna make to the postseason.
And then the other question is, should their GM Chris Ballard and head coach Stan Steichen, should their jobs be in jeopardy? Most Bulls fans I talk to think that at least the GM should go.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the GM more, because the defense being so bad is the way you build your roster up. So then you can definitely start questioning the GM.
So I think we have to ask: was the Sauce Gardner trade a bad trade? Because Sauce Gardner has not played well in Indianapolis at all. He does not tackle well. He has not covered well. Like, I don't know what happened, because he was awesome in New York, but he's not playing good right now. So, and that's just one of the many moves. And it's just like, ever since Andrew Luck walked out on him, they just have had no idea what to do. And Chris Ballard's tried all these patch fixes to it, and then attempted Anthony Richardson and guessed wrong as rookie quarterback. So I think at this point, especially when you consider that you have a new owner in Carly Ursig Gordon, I think she appears to me from the outside to be someone who's going to want her own person in there. They're tired of watching the Colts be mediocre. You realize the Colts have not won a division since 2017? That seems insane to me. That everyone else in the division has won the division multiple times, including the Titans have won it multiple times. And I would argue the Colts overall have been a better team in that time span than the Titans. But the Colts have no division championships. And that goes back to Chris Ballard. So I think he's got to go.
Yeah, it's something that's fair to question, definitely, because and during that time span, the Colts had good teams, and and the it's not like the AFC South. I know they had the Titans run, and even the Houston run, even the Jags won during that period. So the Colts not be able to win the division for that long definitely is on the GM's lap.
Yeah. Also, the Baltimore Ravens too. I mean, well, what a disappointing year this has turned out. I know there was injuries early on, but Lamar Jackson's just not the same player right now. And with the injuries and stuff, like this team is just a dead season for Baltimore. And you wonder if this is going to have any effect on John Harbaugh at all.
Yeah, definitely that you can question about, because this season felt like, was going to be another run in the AFC. It's so funny how the AFC swift a lot this season because, before that season for what, 3 years, it was Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. And now, none of them are in the top four.
Right. And of course, you got Josh Allen and the Bills who are still fighting for a playoff spot. And of course, Joe Burrow isn't even in there fighting for it. So, wild times indeed. Also, another wild finish, too. The Steelers at the Lions game. The stuff at the end there with the offensive pass interference. I mean, I thought it was the right call.
But the way the referees pronounced that in the stadium was weird.
Right. And like I'm just like, bro, are they trying to start a riot right now in Detroit? Because I'm just like, yeah, there's gonna be I'm just thinking there's gonna be a full-on riot at the end of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a devastating loss for Dan Campbell. And I've not been impressed with Dan Campbell this year. I have thought he has cost him at least 2 to 3 games with the over aggressiveness and fourth downs. And I think there's some questioning that whether or not have the Lions screwed up their championship window. Making the NFC title game a few years ago, but collapsing to the 49ers. Last year, collapsing at home against Washington. This year, you're probably not even going to make the playoffs. And I would argue this is why the Los Angeles Rams traded away Jared Goff. It's because this is what Jared Goff does in big games.
Yeah, I mean, Sean McVay had something in mind when he pulled up this trade, and Matthew Stafford already delivered one Super Bowl and took the Rams to another postseason.
Yeah, and right now Matt Stafford looks better still at his age. Also, what do you make of the George Pickens situation? Of him punching the whole confrontation with a fan. I don't know why George Pickens is even interacting with rival fans. Like, if you're an NFL player on the road, why are you going into the stands? Why are you going up and talking to the opposing fans? Like, it's just so dumb. Nothing good can come of that.
Like, and again, you are the star. You are the player. Like, you need to, evaluate your actions way more than the fans, because the fans are. I'm not, praising what this confrontation. You should be more civil, but you are in your home stand. You are kind of there to root for your team, and I seen here in Brazil so many times. The home fans with me, or even in the opposite way. In Rio Branco fans when they have, like, inactive players or front office people go into, like, the VIP booth or the press booth to watch the games, and they react to, like, celebrating a goal, and then they tend to antagonize the opposing fans. So you always need to be mindful when you're going on the road.
Yes, absolutely. But hey, Steelers got the win. It looks like the Steelers are going to win the AFC North, and Gus, they have reached 9 wins. So Mike Tomlin once again is going to finish above 500.
Woo!
I mean, the Steelers are in purgatory. I don't know what you can do. They do too well to justify getting rid of Mike Tomlin, but they're nowhere near a championship contending football team.
They are for example, there are a couple that either in the like they're in a marriage that either side cheats on each other, and they are good people, but there's no sparkles, there's no juice, they're just there. That's what I feel between Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Uh, the Steelers are too emotional to fire Mike Tomlin, and and they don't have that bad season performance to justify, because this never having a losing season, it's turned into a mockery, and even turned into like a hostage situation where the Pittsburgh Steelers, they they don't have the justification to make a change as in the head coach because of this fact. But not having a losing season, going to the playoffs and being booed out in the first round, is that all the Steelers are right now? That's they become.
Yeah, and like, are you okay with that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? You shouldn't be. Like, I think you need someone who's going to go in and shake things up. But hey, Steelers are going to win another division, and with that, you're probably keeping Mike Tomlin for at least one more year. So,
But they win the division not because they exceeded. It's just their competition fell apart this year, especially Baltimore and Cincinnati.
yeah,
Was
absolutely.
was well, they win the division not because they exceeded. It was just they performed like you always did. It's just the competition fell apart.
Yeah, like they can't be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and just completely fall apart. You know, and now they're about to lose a division to the Carolina Panthers of all teams in the NFC South. Which, by the way, I still question whether the NFC South should even have a playoff spot this year, but that's the rules are the rules.
Is the NFC South the ACC of the NFL?
Yes, which is ironic because basically every single one of their teams is in an ACC city. Basically.
Yeah.
Also, I will say one team that I think fully convinced me that they are a legit title contender this week: Jacksonville. What they did to Denver in Denver was kind of stunning. Like, Trevor Lawrence has realized his potential. This is the Trevor Lawrence I thought I was going to get when he was drafted in 2021. It just took us a while to get to this point. It took some stability. But once he got that stability, he looks like the quarterback we all thought he was going to look like.
That's why when people rush to, oh, is Trevor Lawrence a bust? And I'll be like, I don't know. I still want to see one or two seasons more, because he was such an outstanding quarterback in college, and no way he was going to be a bust. And he's proving once again, when he has a better overall roster, he can deliver. And the way Jacksonville did it throughout the season, because it felt like at some point they were going to be number 3 team in the AFC South, because they did not have a good start, especially have during the span of they had 3 losses in 4 games, losing to the Seahawks and Rams at home, back-to-back home losses. But then after losing to the Texans, they had 6 consecutive wins, and 2 of them were against division rivals, and especially that double-digit win over the Colts. That probably sealed the deal in terms of winning the AFC South.
100%. Although Texas at this point is their main competition. So, okay, let's pick some games this week. So, week 17, and we have a triple header tomorrow on Christmas. Unfortunately, this triple header is not as good as the Thanksgiving ones. So, 1 p.m. on Netflix, the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. 2 teams are just completely eliminated.
Yeah, like TNT had in the college football playoff first round, Netflix only have those Christmas games, and one of them, unfortunately, of course, there's still going to be some good ratings, because the Cowboys and the Commanders have big, especially the Cowboys have a big.
Fantasy football, too. There's a lot of people in fantasy championships this weekend as well that'll watch for those purposes.
Yeah, but in terms of actual standings. It's a worthless game. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys because they are eliminated, but it was weird because if they had a better performance in the first half of the season, they probably could be still in contending. Of course, they lost their last three games, especially uh, two back-to-back home losses. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, especially because Josh Johnson is gonna be the starting quarterback for the Commanders.
Yeah, just a disaster season for Washington. I know there's probably some talk whether or not Dan Quinn should be fired. I think that would be a little unfair. There's been a lot of injuries with Washington this year. I'd give him another year, but I'd take Dallas. All right, the second Netflix game, the Lions at the Vikings. Another game that's probably not going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, if the Vikings beat the Lions, then uh, it settles because if I'm looking right in the settings, if the Lions loses, then the playoff is defined in terms of wild card because then the Lions cannot reach the Packers.
Correct. Yeah, the season will be over for them if they don't win this football game. And honestly, I think Minnesota is going to win.
Yeah, I too. I think Minnesota is going to end the Lions season and make Green Bay advance. It feels like it involuntarily birth. Well, it's not like Green Bay deserved, but they are the seventh seed, so they're going to get in.
And I will say this too: JJ McCarthy is playing better. He has been playing better recently, so I'm curious if, like Trevor Lawrence, we're just going to be patient with him and give him some time.
Yeah.
Now, prime time, man, Amazon Prime probably thought they had a banger here when they scheduled this thing. Broncos at Chiefs on Christmas night. Patrick Mahomes on Christmas night. Nope, Chris Alatacoon. No refunds. No refunds for Amazon Prime.
Oh my god. Like at least the Amazon Prime still have Thursday night games, so it's not like the Netflix where the Christmas games were the games for the streaming service. But yeah, of course, when they scheduled this game for Christmas night, and they expected the Chiefs to be in play in like leading the division and the Broncos in playoff contention, but that's not the case at all. The Broncos. I'm gonna go with Broncos.
I'm going to go the Broncos as well. Now we have a doubleheader on Saturday. The NFL Network made out like bandits in this deal. Probably no one expected the Texans and Chargers to both be double-digit winning teams.
Yeah, and this game's and it's a game that matters a lot in the AFC because with a win, not only the Texans secures their playoff spot, but compete for a higher seed.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Texans to win this game.
Yeah, Texans too. I think they're playing better in the last few weeks. They had a bumpy start, losing the. It's so funny. They lost their first three games, but now they are on a 7-game winning streak.
Yeah. Now on Saturday night we get a game on Peacock. The Baltimore Ravens at the Green Bay Packers. So think about this: to watch the NFL this week, you've got to have Netflix, you've got to have Amazon Prime, and you've got to have Peacock. So, not the most friendly consumer weekend. Now, it just depends on really the injury situation for Green Bay to me. But I still think at home, to me, it felt like last week was the last gasp for Baltimore. I'm going to take Green Bay to find a way to get it done in Lambeau.
Yeah, because if you look at the standing situation today for both teams, it really matters. But it can be a situation where this game is worthless because of the Friday games. Because if the Texans win and the Lions lose, then it's a game that does not matter.
Yeah. So who are you taking to win?
I'm gonna go with the Packers.
All right. Sunday in Nashville, you got the 5-10 New Orleans Saints with the 3-12 Tennessee Titans. Two teams I think that have been playing better recently.
Gonna go with the Titans.
I'm going to go with the Saints, actually. Tyler Shuck is actually starting to get it going. But I actually think this will be a sneaky good game. The 3-12 Cardinals at the 5-12 10 Bengals.
Ticket as low as $12, even though it's not gonna be that cold. But I'm gonna go with Bengals.
Yeah, I'll go Bengals. All right, Steelers at the Browns, 1 p.m.
Steelers.
Steelers. All right, Jacksonville at Indianapolis.
Jags.
Yeah, Jags. It's over for Indy this year. The Buccaneers at the Quinn Ewers led Dolphins, which was a disaster last week. Miami was a disaster. Mike McDaniel's about to get fired. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also a disaster too.
Yeah, and I call it. I saw how they were a sloppy team when I saw them live against the Jets. Even though they were in a 3-game winning streak, and now they are on. They lost 6. They lost 7 out of their last 9 games. So, and they lost to all division rivals. They lost to the Saints and Falcons and Panthers. So, but I think they're gonna keep their season alive. Give me the Panthers. No, give me the Buccaneers.
I'll take the Bucks as well. Patriots at Jets, 1 p.m.
Patriots, no doubt about it.
Patriots. Seahawks at Panthers. This is an interesting game.
Yeah, and for both teams can mean a lot because the Panthers needs to win to be on top of the division going to last game of the year, and the Seattle Seahawks they need to win to keep their bye because they're the number 1 team in the NFC, so they need to win to keep their bye. So give me Seattle.
I'll take Seattle as well. All right.
Yeah, and it's gonna be cool because if that happens, definitely the Sunday Night Football game next week is gonna be Carolina and Tampa Bay because both are gonna be 8-8, and they're gonna face each other in the last game of the year.
Yeah, I would expect that to be the flexed game. Now, in the Tank Bowl, 4:05 p.m. in Vegas, 2-13 New York versus 2-13 Las Vegas. Whoever loses this game is probably getting the number 1 pick.
Even though there were some New York Giants players mad about this, Tank Bowl, but it is Tank Bowl. Give me the Raiders. I don't think the Giants are going to win on the road this season.
I'll take the Giants to win this football game.
And
Dart's going to complete more than like 5 passes.
And what a disastrous season for the Raiders, especially the Geno Smith, Pete Carroll duo.
Yeah, it's time to break him up. Fernando Mendoza, you are a Las Vegas Raider. So it would be at least my prediction, at least. Now,
yeah, because and even if the Giants get the number 1 pick, if the Raiders ended up winning this game, I don't think the Giants are going to draft a quarterback because Jackson Dart are still, I guess, the quarterback moving forward, at least for next season.
But it certainly could determine it, like who could possibly trade up for that pick.
Yeah.
All right, 425. This one's a big one. 10-5 Philadelphia, the NFC East champions, going to 11-4 Buffalo.
Yeah, even though they won the division, they definitely have to win to still have a somewhat chance to have even a number 1 seed or at least a number 2 seed. But from what I heard, the relationship between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurd is not the best. So a lot is hanging over. And for the Bills, it's a really big win because they still, want to have a chance to win the division. Again, I know the Patriots uh, have a way easier uh, opponent than the Bills, but they have to do their part because in the last week of the year, they're gonna play the Jets. So give me the Bills.
I'm gonna take the. I'm actually gonna take the Eagles on the road. I just have a feeling the Eagles will find a way. I think the Eagles found something last week, found their running game again. That'll come in handy, and that will hand the division over to the Patriots. Now Sunday Night Football, what a banger this is gonna be! Chicago at San Francisco. No, that is a Sunday Night Football game, Gus.
Oh yeah, especially because both of them in the NFC, are fighting for the number one seed. Because if somewhat Seattle loses in Carolina, which can happen, the not only the 49ers are fighting for the division, they're fighting for the number one seed, and the Bears as well. So give me 49ers.
I'm going to take the Niners as well at home. The Niners to me they look like a team that could make the Super Bowl again. Like that's what they feel like to me right now. Now Monday night, maybe not as great. We got the Rams who are fighting for something, going to the Atlanta Falcons who are not fighting for anything.
And but at least Falcon fans can have a rare opportunity where they're gonna go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium and enjoy the Chick-fil-A winning eating on a football game.
Yes, and that in itself is worth it. Um,
Yeah,
Puka Nakua is running up and down the field on the Atlanta Falcons.
yeah. Give me the Rams.
Yes, I will take the Rams as well. All right, real quick, Gus. The last thing I want to bring up from the American point thing.
Uh, I was gonna mention too we had the Pro Bowl selection for the Pro Bowl the rosters were revealed, if I'm not
uh,
mistaken. Yeah. Both of the rosters for were revealed. So we have in terms of quarterback so we had for the Buffalo Bills in the AFC we had of course Josh Allen quarterback, James Cook running back. We had offensive tackle Dion Dawkins. For the Dolphins, we had the running back Devon Archain. The Patriots had Drake May, quarterback, and Christian Gonzalez, cornerback. Jets, no Pro Bowlers, no Pro Bowlers.
and the Titans had
The Ravens had the Tennessee Titans has two. Defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, and I guess Kiar is kicker.
the kick returner, Chimere DK,
Yeah, yeah,
who I'm really liking him. He was a great selection. Like actually, right so far, I think last year's draft for Tennessee was pretty good. It's a good sign moving forward.
yeah. So we had other interesting players. We had, for example, Dak Prescott going to another Pro Bowl
I don't know why
for
Tyler. I don't
Philip.
know why Travis Kelsey is here. Like Travis Kelsey did not have a good season for the
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Uh, I don't understand why Bo Nix weren't selected.
Yeah, I mean he's been good, but I don't think he's been great. The Jags only had one player, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think Trevor Lawrence being out as well. I mean, I don't know. I feel like um, some of the quarterback choice. Of course, I'm not seeing Drake May and you know uh, Josh Allen were good, but I feel like there's I I, I would consider you know Bo Nix and um, Trevor Lawrence as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Pro Bowl games gonna be in San Francisco at the where Moscone Center. It's going to be like a 7-on-7 flag football game.
Uh, see,
Pointless.
that's why I don't really care about the Pro Bowl. You know, actually getting selected is a honor, but like no one cares about the actual game.
Yeah, it became more like a honorary uh, award to players than a selection to a interesting exhibition matchup.
Yeah. Now, guys, the last thing I want to bring up from the American point standpoint is we do have NBA Christmas games. Got Cavs, Knicks, Spurs, Thunder, Mavs, Warriors, Rockets, Lakers, and Timberwolves and Nuggets. Which one of those do you
Yeah,
think is best?
yeah, it's definitely not as appealing as it was a couple of years ago. Definitely, I think the game that has more appeal is Warriors Mavericks because of the stars. Anthony Davis on one side, Stephen Curry on the other. In terms of I mean, of
I think
young
Spurs
talent.
Thunder is by far the best game. I mean, the Spurs right now are 2-0 against Oklahoma City this year. So Oklahoma City is 26-2 against all other teams, but they're 0-2 against San Antonio.
Yeah, and it's going to be the number one versus number two team in the West. So definitely should count.
Yeah, I think that's by far the best game tomorrow. And not even close. I mean, Rockets Lakers at 8's interesting. Um, there was Madison Square Garden. Christmas is always a cool scene. And
Yeah,
Timberwolves, yeah,
and Cavaliers and the Knicks, they're you know teams are going to fight for contention.
yeah. But I guess that's everything I have from America. I don't know what's going on in Brazil right now, sports wise.
Yeah, yeah, we had a championship on Sunday, the Brazilian Cup, and that closed out the Brazilian soccer season in Maracanã between Vasco da Gama and Corinthians. And even though Vasco played in front of the majority of like 95% of their fans, they ended up choking. It's one of those scenarios. It's like if, for example, the Dallas Cowboys somehow made it to the Super Bowl, and they've been away for so long, kind of, it make them fell apart because they had the better overall team. I think they play better, but Corinthians, they kind of felt more ready to win. And of course, the individual talent, Yuri Alberto played really good game. The Vasco defense played terribly, giving a lot of space to Corinthians offense, especially in the first goal. Like was like, um, for me, inadmissible that a defensive player gave that much space to Yuri Alberto, and then Vasco Corinthians scored first. The first game was 0-0, so everything could happen. The second game, and Corinthians scored first, then Vasco tied, and then on the second half, Corinthians scored the winning goal to win their fourth Brazilian Cup, and now Vasco da Gama is the team that has the big. I mean, they haven't won a championship, not even a state championship, for 10 years now. 10 years, not state championship, not anything national. The Brazilian Cup or Brazilian Championship, uh, nothing international, nothing. They're on a 10-year drought. Not even the second division title they won, because when they got promoted, they got fourth place back in 2022. So they the Vasco fans really had a very sad and terrible night on Sunday. Kind of bringing all the sadness and angsty. Being away from winning a title for that long, and they're gonna at least for another year being without a title. Corinthians, even though they had, as you know, and I talked a lot about a lot of mess. Front office chaos, president being impeached, interim president being appointed. Corinthians found a way to win not only one but two titles, and being the only on the big four in the state of São Paulo to win championships. How crazy is that? Like all the mockery of Corinthians fans, like, hey, Palmeiras fans, hey, you spend a lot of money, you have the best coach, the best roster, but you got zero titles this year, and we got two titles with all the political chaos and the financial crisis. Corinthians got two titles. They are in the Libertadores next season, so a great end year for Corinthians. Of course, for next year is going to be a lot of unknown. Their GM left yesterday, Fabio Soldado, mostly because the president who hired him got impeached. So the this interim president wants to have a GM of his trust. So we'll see what happens for Corinthians, but their fans are happy. And there was a little bit of a controversy here in Americana because a Corinthians fan group rented Rio Branco Stadium Sunday and put like a watch party for this game and had a really big turnout. Was like almost like 4,000 people to watch the game. But some of the diehard Rio Branco fans hated it. The Rio Branco support group, Malucos do Tigre, issue a statement on Instagram, say Decio Vita Stadium is Rio Branco Stadium, that it should be the last time something like that happens where you rented your stadium for a watch party for a team, especially Corinthians. I'm on the opposite side of it. My opinion is Rio Branco needs money. Rio Branco needs to find ways to get revenue, and if rented a stadium for a watch party brings in money, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do everything you can. Also, Jason Warwick has a question. He asks, "Is Victor, or how do I say that?
Vitor Roque, Vitor
Yeah,
Roque, Palmeiras player going to Chelsea. I probably would think so. Probably Palmeiras does not need to sell him, which makes him a tougher transfer because Palmeiras and Flamengo are in the position that they don't need to sell players. When they sell players is because it's a really good bid. So I haven't heard anything that suggests that he is going to go to Chelsea at least in the last couple weeks. Even though and Leila, even though Chelsea is intensifying negotiations with Leila Pereira, and Manchester United is interested in him as well because and it's so good for Palmeiras because when Palmeiras got Vitor Roque, they spent a lot of money. They bought him from Europe, even though it was a transaction with Barcelona, and Barcelona loaned him with Betis. He was completely like undervalued, and now he had a great season. And going back in Europe on top like that, it can be a good thing. Especially, he can be considered for 2026 World Cup for the Brazil side. So it's probably going to be a good thing. Also, Endrick on a loan to Lyon, France. Hopefully, he can find his soccer again. He can play farmers good again. So and last but not least, Rio Branco, fourth week of preseason. And we lost yesterday to Ituano, but Ituano is going to play the second division in the state of Sao Paulo, Rio Branco third. And Rio Branco fans, they're kind of like, oh my God, we lost another preseason game to a high division team. Oh my God, our team bad. Preseason games in the NFL or even in the soccer, it should be opportunities for you to fix your issues without games being counted. That's the good part. Like, when you have tough opponents and have even though losses, they find, hey, we are not playing well on this side of the ball. We have to fix our defense. But yeah, the only game that matters is literally in 1 month time. It's next month on January 24th against Rio Preto on the road, and that's the game that matters.
100%. I can't wait to see what all those moves do. Of course, Jason adds that the line will be a great move for Indrict, and he says can't wait to see Hoke back in Europe.
Yeah, I think Vitor Roque will be good at addition to Chelsea.
Absolutely. But I think here we're just past over 2 hours, as all the time that we have here on this Christmas Eve. from Gus and from myself, we want to make sure that all of you have and wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and that you all get what you want tomorrow. And remember the reason for the season. I'm Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's Gus, Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast.